My mother-in-law spent 7 years trying to prove I didn't belong in her family. She questioned my daughter's red curls at every dinner table, every birthday party, every holiday gathering. She planted seeds of doubt so carefully, so methodically, that even the people who loved me most began to look at me differently. And then one Sunday evening, she slid a sealed manila envelope across the dinner table, in front of her husband, her children, her sister, and her extended family, and said with the quiet confidence of someone who believed they had already won, "I think you need to see this." What she didn't know is that I had already seen it. I had known for exactly 2 weeks. And what I did with those 2 weeks didn't just save my marriage. It dismantled the lie she had been living for 36 years. Before I take you all the way back to the beginning, drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I read every single one. Now let's go back to where this really started. My name is Danielle. I am 32 years old, and I have been married to my husband Mark for 5 years. I am an occupational therapist. I work with children who have neurological and physical disabilities, and I spend my days teaching small humans to do things the world has told them they cannot do. Grip a crayon. Hold a spoon. Take 3 steps without falling. My job requires 2 things above everything else: patience and the ability to notice patterns that other people miss. Those 2 skills are the reason I am standing where I am today. I met Mark's mother, Patricia Atwood, on a Saturday in October, 7 years ago. Mark and I had been dating for 4 months. He brought me to his parents' house for the first time, and when Patricia opened the front door, she did not hug me. She shook my hand. Firm grip. Eyes already scanning, top to bottom, slow and deliberate, the way an appraiser looks at a piece of furniture before deciding whether it belongs in the room. The first 30 minutes were fine. There was pot roast. There was small talk. His father Warren told a story about rewiring their garage. Normal enough. But then Patricia steered the conversation the way she steered everything, quietly and with absolute purpose. "So Danielle, where did you grow up?" I told her. Bridgeport. Small apartment. My mother was a pediatric nurse. My parents separated when I was 6. Patricia nodded slowly. She touched her pearl earring, a small, practiced gesture I would come to know very well over the next 7 years. She twisted it once between her thumb and forefinger, then smiled. "That must have been difficult," she said. She said it the way people say interesting when they actually mean noted. Later, in the car, Mark said she liked me. I said, "Did she?" He laughed. I did not. What I had already understood that evening, what I filed away without fully knowing why, was that Patricia was a woman who needed to know where things came from. Not just me. Everything. She had asked about the wine, where it was made, who had recommended it. She inspected the label before she poured. She was someone who tracked origins. I didn't know yet that this quality would one day be aimed like a weapon at my daughter. But I remember thinking, clearly, that she was someone who kept score. Mark and I got married the following June. Small ceremony, 40 guests, an outdoor venue near the Connecticut coast. My mother flew in from Arizona. Patricia wore cream, which my maid of honor called a power move. I didn't care. I was marrying a good man, and I was happy. The first year of our marriage was quiet in the way new marriages often are. We rented a house in Milford, 40 minutes from Patricia and Warren. Close enough for holidays. Far enough, I hoped, for breathing room. Except Patricia did not believe in breathing room. She showed up unannounced, Tuesdays mostly, sometimes Thursdays, walking in through the side door with the key we had given her. For emergencies, rearranging whatever was within reach. The spice rack. The coat closet. Once she reorganized my linen cabinet and left a note. Towels by color, easier to find. I thanked her. Mark said that was just how she was. Mark's younger sister Courtney visited on weekends. She was 24 then, still living at home, still orbiting her mother like a satellite with no trajectory of her own. Every visit ended the same way. Courtney would leave, and within hours Patricia would call Mark with commentary about our house, our meals, our plans. I said nothing. I was new to the family. I was still learning the rules. One Thanksgiving, Patricia raised her glass. "To Mark," she said. She looked around the table, Warren, Courtney, Aunt Margot, Uncle Dennis, and then her eyes landed on me for exactly 1 second. Mark could have had anyone. Anyone. The table laughed. I smiled. And somewhere deep in my chest, a small and precise instrument made its very first measurement. Our daughter Lily was born on a Wednesday in March, 2 years into our marriage. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She came out screaming, which the nurse said was an excellent sign. Her hair was dark, almost black. Patricia held her in the hospital room and said, "She looks just like Mark did." There was real warmth in that moment. Genuine warmth. For one brief, hopeful moment, I thought, maybe this is the thing that finally brings us together. That feeling lasted about 6 months. At 6 months, Lily's hair began to change. Not all at once. Strand by strand, the way autumn arrives slowly, and then all at once. Dark brown lightened to auburn. Auburn brightened to copper. By her first birthday, my daughter had a full head of strawberry red curls that caught the light like small fires. I thought it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. My mother had the same hair. Her grandmother before her. The genetics were not a mystery to me. But Patricia did not see genetics. She saw a problem. "Interesting," she said at Lily's first birthday party, holding one of Lily's curls between her fingers the way someone holds a piece of evidence. "Red hair. Where does that come from?" I explained, "Recessive gene. My maternal line, it skips generations sometimes." Patricia gave me the pearl earring smile. Interesting, because red hair does not run in the Atwood family." She said it lightly. "The way you mention a crack in a foundation. Not alarming. Just something that should probably be looked at." No one at the party responded. But I heard it. And I knew, with the certainty of someone who reads behavioral patterns for a living, that she had been thinking about this for a while. Over the next year, things shifted. It was never dramatic. Nothing Patricia did was ever dramatic at first. She was methodical. She planted her seeds the way someone salts a road before a storm. Thin, deliberate layers you don't feel until you lose your footing. The comments about Lily's hair became routine. Not every visit, but often enough. "She is so unique looking. No one on our side has that coloring. Does your family have any Irish? Maybe that explains it." I started keeping count. 14 comments in 6 months. I wrote the dates in a small notebook I kept in my bedside drawer, a professional habit. In my work, I documented everything. Behavioral patterns. Sensory triggers. Motor milestones. Documentation was how I made sense of the world. Courtney amplified the campaign from her own platform. She posted a photo of Lily on Instagram, red curls, green romper, standing in Patricia's garden with the caption, "She is so unique looking. Wonder where she gets it." Smiley face emoji. 1,400 likes. I showed Mark. He shrugged. Court is just being court. The extended family began to look at me differently. Warren's brother Dennis avoided eye contact at a summer barbecue. Cousin Ellie, who had always been warm, stopped texting. Aunt Margot started watching me the way you watch someone you are waiting to catch. None of it was said out loud. That was the point. Patricia wasn't building a case with words. She was building one with silence. The kind of silence that fills a room the way smoke fills a house before anyone sees the fire. I felt it everywhere I went. I just couldn't prove it. Not ye. The sippy cup incident happened on a Tuesday in April. Mark had a site meeting 2 hours north. I had a late shift. A 7-year-old with a spinal cord injury needed extra session time, and I couldn't say no. Patricia offered to watch Lily. I dropped her off at 10 in the morning, packed her bag, snacks, diapers, her favorite stuffed elephant, and the green sippy cup she had been using for months. When I picked Lily up at 6 that evening, the cup was gone. "Oh, that old thing," Patricia said. I threw it out. It looked worn. It was not worn. I had bought it 3 weeks earlier. I didn't push back. I thanked her, loaded Lily into the car seat, and drove home. But something else had caught my eye that afternoon. When I walked through Patricia's kitchen to grab Lily's jacket from the counter, I noticed a small Ziploc bag on the table. The kind you use for snacks. Or evidence. Patricia moved fast. She picked it up and tucked it into a drawer before I could read the label. "Just organizing," she said. And on her hallway desk, Partially visible behind a stack of mail was a thick manila envelope, sealed, with a return address I couldn't quite make out. I didn't connect the pieces that night. The sippy cup, the Ziploc bag, the envelope. They were puzzle pieces without a picture. I went home, bathed Lily, read her a story, fell asleep. But the part of my brain trained to notice patterns in children who could not tell me what was wrong, that part of me was already working. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at work. I was between patients, sitting in the therapy room, cleaning rubber grips from an exercise kit. Mrs. Atwood? This is Kelly from Geneva Labs. I'm calling to confirm we received a sample for analysis under your daughter's name, Lily Atwood, age 3. I set the grip down. I did not submit a sample. The submission was made under the name Patricia Atwood. She listed herself as the child's grandmother. However, our policy requires parental consent for testing on minors. We've placed the test on hold pending your authorization. Would you like to proceed or cancel? Cancel. My hands were trembling when I hung up, but my voice had not cracked. It never does when it matters. Something I learned from my mother, who delivered devastating news to parents for 28 years and never once raised her voice. I sat in that therapy room for 4 minutes. I stared at the wall chart of hand muscles. I let the Latin ground me. Then I picked up my phone and I called a family attorney. Her name was Rachel. She practiced family law in New Haven, 14 years of experience and a reputation for being direct. I told her everything, the comments, the sippy cup, the phone call. She listened without interrupting, which in my line of work is the hallmark of someone who is actually paying attention. When I finished, she leaned back. Under Connecticut law, a grandparent cannot authorize genetic testing on a minor child without the express consent of a parent or legal guardian. Full stop. What she did is a violation of your daughter's privacy rights and potentially actionable in civil court. She paused. Do not confront her. Do not tell your husband yet. I looked at her. Why not? Because if you tell Mark, he will call his mother. She will cry, apologize, and ask him to keep it in the family. The pattern will repeat. If you want this to stop, really stop, you need to let her play her hand. I paid the consultation fee. $350. The best money I have ever spent. I called Geneva Labs back that same evening and had the sample canceled. I flagged Lily's name for any future submissions. Then I went home, put Lily to bed, and opened my laptop. I spent that night studying how consumer DNA platforms worked, the ones that advertise ancestry and family connections. And what I discovered changed everything, because while clinical labs like Geneva had strict consent protocols, which is why they had called me, consumer platforms had simple checkbox agreements. A grandparent could click I am the parent or guardian, submit a child's DNA, and the system would process it without question. I opened Patricia's Facebook page and scrolled back. In February, Courtney had shared an article titled, What Your DNA Says About Your Family. Patricia had commented 2 words, very interesting. I took a screenshot. I saved it to a folder on my desktop labeled, simply, documentation. On day 5, I got lucky. I drove to Patricia's house to pick up a pair of Lily's shoes she had left behind. Patricia was out, hair appointment, Courtney said when she opened the door. Courtney was on the couch, FaceTiming someone, phone propped against a stack of books. I walked past her toward the mudroom. Her voice carried the way it always did, louder than necessary, as if the world needed to hear her participation in it. Mom has the results. She's doing it at Sunday dinner, in front of everyone. She's been planning it for weeks. She says once Mark sees the proof, he won't be able to ignore it. I stopped. My hand was on Lily's left shoe. I know, right? It's going to be insane. I picked up the shoes. I walked back through the living room. Courtney saw me and killed the call instantly. Oh, hey. Just chatting with a friend. I smiled. No worries. Just grabbing Lily's shoes. I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, and pressed my hands against the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Now I knew the when, the where, and the audience. Patricia had built a stage. She had cast the audience. She had rehearsed the lines. And she believed fully, completely believed that The results would say exactly what she wanted them to say. I started the car. I was not going to stop her. I was going to let her light the match. The fire would find its own way back. On day 7, I found James. Not intentionally at first. I was trying to understand how the consumer DNA platform worked, so I created my own account and spent an evening reading about how familial matching algorithms function. When you submit DNA to one of these platforms, the system doesn't just test paternity. It scans the entire database for genetic relatives, siblings, cousins, half-cousins, distant matches. Anyone who shares enough markers gets flagged as a potential relative. Patricia had submitted Lily's DNA. That meant Lily's profile was now cross-referenced with every other profile in the system. I logged into the account Patricia had created. She had used an email I found through a password reset trick Courtney had once mentioned casually. The password was Lily's birthday. Of course it was. And there, under potential relatives on Lily's profile, was a name I had never seen. Half-uncle meant one thing. James shared a biological parent with either Mark or with me. Since only Lily's DNA had been submitted, not mine, the match had to be on Mark's side. Either Warren had a secret son, or Patricia did. I took a screenshot. I emailed it to Rachel immediately. The next morning she called. We need to find out who James M. is. It took me 2 evenings. James Michael Callahan. Born June 1990. Portland, Oregon. Adopted at birth through a private agency in Hartford, Connecticut. His profile on the platform said 3 things that stopped my breath. Adopted. Looking for biological family. Open to conversation. I did the math. Born 1990. Patricia was 25 that year. She and Warren married in 1992. Mark was born that same year. Patricia had a child 2 years before she ever married Warren. She gave that child up for adoption. And she had never told a single person except, possibly, the one woman who had been watching me with careful, knowing eyes at every family dinner for 7 years. Aunt Margot. Because when I looked at the shared matches on James's profile, I found one more name, Margaret R., possible aunt or half-aunt. Margot's middle name was Ruth. Margaret Ruth. Margot had known. She had known for 36 years. I sat at my kitchen table and thought about Patricia at 25, unmarried, probably terrified, making a decision that would follow her for the rest of her life. I understood that fear. But understanding a choice and forgiving the lie that grows from it are not the same thing. Patricia hadn't just given up a child. She had buried the truth so deeply that she convinced herself the only threat to her family was me. She had turned her own guilt into a weapon aimed at my daughter. And now, the weapon had turned around. Sunday morning, I dressed carefully. Ivory sweater. Dark jeans. The small gold necklace Mark gave me on our first anniversary. No armor. Just me. Lily wore a blue dress with white flowers. She spun twice in the hallway mirror before I caught her. Classic rock on the radio. Lily fell asleep before we hit the highway. We pulled into Patricia's driveway at 4:15. 3 cars already there, Warren's truck, Courtney's sedan, Margot's silver Buick. Full house. Patricia met us at the door. She hugged Mark long and firm, the kind of hug you give when you believe you are about to do something righteous. She nodded at me, brief and efficient. Put Lily down upstairs. She can nap in the guest room. I carried Lily up, laid her on the bed, pulled a blanket over her legs. Red curls fanned across the white pillow. Back downstairs, the family was assembled. On the hallway table, right where I had first seen it 2 weeks earlier, sat the manila envelope. Thick. Sealed. Waiting. Dinner was good. Patricia had always been an excellent cook, one of the few things about her that wasn't a performance. Warren told a fishing story. Dennis laughed. Ellie complimented the gravy. But I was watching the currents beneath the surface. Courtney checked her phone every 30 seconds, not texting, just checking the time. She was on a clock. Margot held her fork the way some people hold a railing on a bridge. Tight grip, eyes straight ahead. She ate almost nothing. 20 minutes in, Patricia stood up. She smoothed her blouse, cleared her throat. Before dessert, she said, "There is something I want to share with the family." She walked to the hallway, returned with the envelope. She held it the way a prosecutor holds an exhibit, at chest level, label facing out. She slid it across the table to Mark. Open it. Mark looked at the envelope. Then at his mother. What is this? This is a DNA test. For Lily. The room contracted. I had Lily tested privately because I love this family. Because that child, she pointed toward the ceiling, toward the room where our daughter slept, does not look like an Atwood. Red hair does not run in this family. And I think Mark has a right to know whether that child is really his. The sentence landed on the table like a brick through glass. Mark opened the envelope. He read the first page in silence. 15 seconds. 20. Long enough for Patricia to shift her weight. Long enough for Courtney to stop breathing. Mark looked up. He looked directly at his mother. She is mine. Patricia blinked. What? Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. He held up the page. Lily is my daughter. The smile on Patricia's face did not fall. It fractured. Like ice on a windshield, still technically in place, but no longer holding anything together. And then I spoke. Calmly. Clearly. The same voice I use when a parent asks me if their child will ever walk. The results are correct, Patricia. I know, because I called the lab 2 weeks ago when they contacted me to verify parental consent. Consent that you never obtained. Under Connecticut state law.